Welcome back. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a like. Enjoy the video. The waiting area at Newark Liberty International Airport buzzed with restless travelers on a wet, blustery morning in November. Roving announcements pierced through the low hum of conversation, each reminding passengers to check their gates, watch their belongings, or verify last-minute schedule changes. Under the fluorescent lights, a diverse mix of people, families with strollers, business-suited professionals, and backpack-toting students, converged at Gate B777. The flight to Boston, initially scheduled for 9 a.m., had been delayed, stirring dissatisfaction among many. At the center of one cluster of first-class passengers stood Rebecca Thompson, a 35-year-old corporate executive who wore a tailored navy blazer and pencil skirt. Her auburn hair was pinned back with an elegant silver barrette, and her black pumps tapped anxiously on the floor. Rebecca's face bore the frustration of someone accustomed to snapping her fingers for immediate results. She was heading to a highly anticipated management conference where she planned to charm her way into a high-profile promotion. As she scrolled through emails on her smartphone, each an urgent message from colleagues expecting her to deliver flawless budgets and presentations, Rebecca tried to drown out her own impatience. Finally, the crackling overhead speaker announced that first-class passengers could board. Rebecca exhaled, relieved that she'd soon escape the chaos. Clutching her designer handbag and a glossy tote stuffed with her laptop and files, she walked briskly down the jet bridge. Inside the plane, the first-class cabin was a cozy bubble of extra-wide seats and champagne flutes. Rebecca claimed seat 2As, stowing her bag in the overhead compartment. She made a show of checking her phone screen once more, scanning for messages labeled urgent. Moments later, an elderly black man in a well-worn but immaculate Veterans Affairs jacket appeared near the front of the cabin, scanning the row numbers. The name patch on his chest read M. Washington, and a purple heart pin gleamed on his lapel. With measured politeness, he nodded at Rebecca, then pointed to the seat beside her, seat 2B. Rebecca's hazel eyes flickered with annoyance. She acknowledged him with a stiff smile, though a swirl of unspoken judgment spun in her head. "I wonder if he's here on some courtesy upgrade or discount," her prejudice whispered. "I paid top dollar for my seat." Feeling put out, she sank into her plush seat and snapped her seatbelt, her body language declaring that she had zero intention of making friendly small talk. Once Marcus Washington settled into his seat, he offered a polite nod toward Rebecca, but she turned pointedly toward the window. The flight attendants glided down the aisle offering pre-departure beverages, sparkling water, orange juice, or perhaps a mimosa. One attendant, noticing Marcus's veteran status, paused and said, "Thank you so much for your service, sir. Please let me know if you need anything." Rebecca couldn't hide her frustration. Of course, she thought bitterly. The extra perks for veterans, everyone tripping over themselves to say thank you. Her lips pressed into a thin line as she reached for her phone and pretended to be busy. She'd never considered herself overtly racist. In fact, she boasted to friends that she was colorblind. Yet in moments like this, especially when her own privilege or sense of entitlement felt threatened, she found herself quietly resenting people she deemed undeserving. A short while later, with first-class passengers settled, the cabin doors closed as the plane taxied away from the gate. Marcus discreetly pulled a small photograph from his jacket's inside pocket. Rebecca noticed this out of the corner of her eye. It was a picture of a smiling child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing a rainbow-colored headband and holding a violin. Unable to restrain her curiosity turned irritation, Rebecca said coolly, "Cute kid? Your granddaughter?" Marcus turned toward her, surprise flickering across his weathered features. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am, that's my Lily. She's all I have left since my daughter and her husband passed." Rebecca almost rolled her eyes at the ma'am. She was, by many accounts, proud of her successes. Yet she found herself irritated. "Ha," she said, then added with a note of sarcasm, "She must be proud her grandfather's a veteran. You traveling to visit her or something?" "I'm actually heading to Boston Children's Hospital to see her," Marcus replied simply. Rebecca's nerves were already raw, and something about the way Marcus didn't elaborate provoked her further. She felt compelled to poke. "Must be nice to have the airline upgrade you," she said pointedly. "You're in first class, right?" Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. "I paid for this seat myself, ma'am. I'm not looking for free handouts if that's what you're suggesting." His calm but firm tone bristled against Rebecca's unspoken biases. Mid-flight, the cabin lights dimmed as attendants began serving the lunch meal, salmon or pasta, accompanied by a side salad and a warm bread roll. Rebecca requested a glass of Chardonnay, hoping it might quell the subtle anger roiling in her chest. She glanced over at Marcus, who politely declined the wine offered to him. When an attendant handed him a tray, she again expressed gratitude for his service. Rebecca couldn't hold back any longer. She angled herself toward Marcus. "Don't you ever get tired of people fawning over you just because you're a veteran?" she asked, her tone dripping with hostility she couldn't fully articulate. Marcus set down his fork. "Ma'am, if it bothers you that much, I can pay for my own meal." "It's not a big deal." His voice was controlled, but Rebecca could sense an undercurrent of pain. She shrugged. "It's not about the meal. It's about the principle." Her statement was laced with a prejudice she had never openly confronted. Deep inside, she felt uncomfortable around black men, especially those who seemed to receive public praise or recognition. It challenged her unacknowledged sense of superiority. Marcus looked away, a flicker of hurt crossing his eyes, yet he seemed to decide not to escalate. Instead, he took a breath. "I'm heading to Boston because Lily has a serious medical condition. I'm just trying to be there for her." When the plane touched down at Logan International Airport, Rebecca gathered her belongings quickly, eager to put distance between herself and the veteran she had so brusquely dismissed. As she stepped off the aircraft, she overheard Marcus on the phone saying, "Yes, Dr. Carter, I'm here. I'll be at the hospital soon." The tone of urgency in his voice nagged at the edges of Rebecca's consciousness, but she pushed the thought aside. Inside the terminal, she strode toward baggage claim, ignoring the hustle and bustle of families reuniting. Her phone buzzed with a text from her colleague. "Case. We need your updated slides by tonight. Big pitch tomorrow. Where are you?" Just as she wheeled around with her sleek silver suitcase, she glimpsed Marcus again, this time on the far side, seemingly still on a call. Something about his lowered head and tense posture tugged at her heart for a split second, then she shook her head, steeling herself against any compassion that might threaten her carefully curated outlook. "He's not my responsibility," she told herself firmly. Rebecca's conference kicked off the next morning in a gleaming downtown skyscraper. The event hall buzzed with chatter about new market strategies and whispers of possible corporate mergers. After delivering her talk, complete with polished slides and statistics, Rebecca stepped outside to check messages in a quiet corridor. She saw a notification from her local Boston news app. "Retired Vietnam veteran seeks help for granddaughter's life-saving surgery." The accompanying thumbnail displayed a small image of a hospital room. Ordinarily, Rebecca would have dismissed such a headline, but she couldn't help clicking. This time, the article opened with Marcus Washington, a decorated Vietnam War veteran, appealing for help with his granddaughter Lily, who has been diagnosed with a rare neurological condition. Rebecca stared at the screen, her stomach twisting. The article included a photo, the same bright-eyed girl from Marcus's snapshot. Lily was hooked up to multiple tubes in a pediatric ICU. Words like experimental procedure and insurance gaps jumped out. The piece reported that Marcus Washington had liquidated his savings and pension to cover initial treatments, but Lily needed advanced interventions not fully covered by VA benefits. He had started a modest online fundraiser to make up the difference. Rebecca's heartbeat thundered. Her mind flashed back to her sneering remarks on the plane, her accusations about him angling for special treatment. Shame surged through her as she pictured Lily's little face, the tubes, the lines of worry etched in Marcus's expression. He wasn't faking anything. By evening, Rebecca found herself pulled toward Boston Children's Hospital. The pediatric neurology wing was quiet, with nurses and scrubs bustling about. She approached the central desk. "I'm looking for Lily Washington," she said quietly, the words feeling foreign in her mouth. When she reached room 412, she spotted Marcus through the glass window. He stood by a metal-framed hospital bed, leaning over the sleeping form of Lily, who was attached to multiple IV lines and monitors. His back looked rigid, as though the burden of the world weighed down his broad shoulders. "Mr. Washington," Rebecca called softly from the doorway. "I read about Lily's situation in the news. I'm sorry if this is intrusive, but I wanted to apologize for my behavior on the plane." Marcus studied her for a long moment before speaking. "You know what hurt most wasn't the prejudice against my race. I've dealt with that my whole life. It was the assumption that my service meant nothing, that I was looking for handouts. I fought for this country when many wanted nothing to do with me. Now I'm fighting for my granddaughter's life." Rebecca felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I was wrong, so terribly wrong. I've made an anonymous donation to Lily's fundraiser, but money isn't enough. I want to help in any way I can." Over the next several weeks, Rebecca threw herself into helping Marcus navigate the healthcare system. She used her corporate connections to expedite appointments, coordinated with insurance companies, and even started a larger fundraising campaign through her business network. Lily's surgery was eventually scheduled, and against all odds, it was successful. During her recovery, Rebecca became a regular visitor, bringing books, games, and sometimes just sitting with Marcus while he rested. She watched as Lily grew stronger, taking her first steps post-surgery, her smile brightening the sterile hospital rooms. One evening, as they sat in the hospital garden watching Lily feed some birds, Marcus turned to Rebecca. "You know, some people never change. They hold on to their prejudices like armor. But you didn't just apologize. You transformed. You showed up day after day." Rebecca smiled softly. "And you taught me more about courage, dignity, and love than any corporate success ever could. I was so wrong about everything, but you gave me the chance to learn, to grow." In the years that followed, Rebecca redirected her career toward healthcare advocacy, focusing on veterans' families and children with rare diseases. She remained a constant in Lily's life, becoming the honorary aunt who never missed a school concert or birthday. The story of Rebecca Thompson and Marcus Washington became more than just a tale of prejudice overcome. It became a testament to the power of confronting our biases, of choosing love over fear, of recognizing the humanity in those we once sought to diminish. Sometimes the greatest journeys begin with the hardest truths about ourselves. And it all started with a seat assignment on a delayed flight. Proof that transformation can find us in the most unexpected places, if only we're brave enough to open our hearts to change. Here on Karma's Twists, we share the most impactful stories of karma and justice that the world needs to see. Don't miss a single moment of good triumphing over evil. Join our community and subscribe. Be part of the movement that believes justice always wins.